Tell us a little bit about the role of the monks at the Abbey de Cluny.
Cluny is the abbey in Mâconnais, and which was created in 910, so 10th century, and became one of the strongest abbey in Europe, with more than 1,200 churches all over Europe. And they invented the best deal ever to own lands in Burgundy. So if you made something wrong during your life, you could actually, before dying, buy your soul back by giving up to the church your land. After 200 years, so the 12th century, Cluny owned 5,000 hectares of land and 20,000 hectares, 5,000 hectares of vines and 20,000 of agricultural land. And I mean, there is not a single domain in the world who has that much land today. And so maybe we should work back on that. And the people talk about the Cistercian, and which made Burgundy, Cistercian in Burgundy, arrived after the 12th century. So 200 years later, after the Cluny monks. And it was kind of like an opposite of, I mean, they were still Catholic, but it's kind of different branch of the Catholic Church, like the Franciscan, and they were kind of fighting the power of Cluny. Cluny was kind of scared Rome in a way, because they were scared that at one point Cluny would become the center of the Catholic Church. And a lot of Pope came from Cluny, and so they were happy to have something very strong, but not that strong. So they were working on the same thing, but they actually were unhappy about that. And actually, when they built Saint-Pierre de Rome, when you walk into the church, you do 1 meter, and there is a small sign on the floor, and it's written Cluny, because Saint-Pierre de Rome is 1 meter bigger than Cluny and 10 centimeters higher than Cluny. That kind of shows the ego. It's a long story, and the thing is about Burgundy. It's you will find a very different way of approaching the land and the wine. Cluny was known to be liking wine, food, and a bit too much, and the Cistercians were more strict on the rules of Catholic and all of that, and so the result is, for example, for the converts, so the people were working for a year, in the Cistercian church, they would have no wine. In the Benedictine church, they would have wine like a liter per day to drink. And they were very different, but that also made Burgundy its kind of story. And for example, for the name in Burgundy, the Cistercian would give name by the origin of the owner. So you will have, for example, Le Champ Bertin, which is the field of Monsieur Bertin, the Champ Bertin. And so you find that everywhere in Burgundy. And you also have the names given by what you could see in the land. And Les Genévrières, it's Genièvre in French is genepi. So it's a land where you have genepi naturally. So the land was called because of that. So you have different approach to the terroir, and different, and and the two church really made what we know now of Burgundy. Now, if the Cluny was completely destroyed during the French Revolution, I mean, there is nothing left. There is maybe like 10% of the church still alive compared to what it was. And all the land's been redistributed to people, and so actually the Cluny fall completely. And the Mâconnais kind of followed that in terms of wine. If you look back at the Mâconnais, now we only have 30% of what was planted in the 18th century. And so there is tons of lands which used to be planted in vines. And why we didn't replant that when the Côte d'Or and the Côte Bonne did replant, it's actually because in the Mâconnais we would A classic farm would be a tiny bit of vines, a tiny bit of field where you would have a cow or whatever, and a tiny bit of field where you would grow some whatever for feeding people. And that was a classic system, because the Mâconnais has it's much more chaotic. So you can't put vines everywhere, and actually you can put field at some point. So a small farm, when they had the phylloxera at the end of the 19th century, instead of replanting vines, they just had a new cow, and you were making as much money with a cow than with wine, which is not the case. In the Côte d'Or or the Côte de Beaune, there were vines everywhere, and the vineyard was very concentrated in one place. So when they had the phylloxera, they actually replanted all the vines. So the vineyard is back into that. When the Mâconnais kind of lost some of his history and lost of some of that knowledge, and that's life.